Part 2. The message crackled through the speakers. Everyone in the command center stopped moving. Even the Vathari, who didn't understand human language well, knew this was important. Karen White's fingers flew across the controls. She was the science officer, and right now her job was to make sense of what they were hearing. I've got it. It's military encryption, human military. It's old code, the same kind we used. Play it, Morrison ordered. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped the edge of the console hard enough that his knuckles turned white. Static filled the room. Then a woman's voice, distorted by distance and interference. This is Lieutenant Commander Amy Collins of the ESS Sentinel to any human vessels in range. We are returning from deep space survey. Be advised, they followed us back. I repeat, they followed us back. Humanity did not die. Humanity ran. And now they're coming to finish what they started. The message included coordinates and a timestamp. Then it repeated, over and over, a warning that had been broadcasting for hours. The command center erupted. Vathari officers started shouting in their language, mandibles clicking frantically. Alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed across every screen. Morrison stood perfectly still in the middle of the chaos. Lisa Hayes moved to his side. Jake, she said quietly. What does she mean humanity ran? I don't know. But we're going to find out. He turned to Zixthal. Commander, you need to evacuate this station. Right now. Zixthal's 6 eyes all focused on Morrison. Captain, I don't understand. Who followed you back? I don't know who they are, but I know this. Humanity didn't run from you. We didn't run from the Galactic Council or any species, you know. We ran from something that scared us so badly that we abandoned everything we built. And if Lieutenant Commander Collins is right, they're here now. Lisa pulled up the coordinates from the message. The Sentinel is 3 days away at maximum speed. But Jake, look at this. She pointed to the long-range sensors. Beyond the coordinates, there were anomalies. Lots of them. Gravity distortions. Energy signatures. Something big was moving through space. How big? Morrison asked. Karen checked the readings twice. Then 3 times. Her face went pale. Captain, if these sensors are right, there are thousands of ships out there. Maybe tens of thousands. All moving in formation. Moving where? Zixthal demanded. Here, Morrison said quietly. They're coming to Earth. Greg Palmer, the medical officer, had been quiet until now. Commander Zixthal, humanity disappeared 20,000 years ago. All at once. Every colony, every station, every city went silent. That's not a coincidence. Something made us hide. Danny Cruz was already working on a navigation console. I'm plotting their course. If they maintain current speed, they'll reach Earth in 2 weeks. Zixthal made a decision. I'm calling an emergency council meeting. The Galactic Council needs to hear this. 3 hours later, they were on a fast ship headed for the council station. Morrison stood at a window watching the stars stream past. Lisa found him there. You okay? She asked. My daughter would be 35 now if we'd come back on time. Instead, she's been dead for 19,958 years. So no, Lisa, I'm not okay. None of us are. But we're here. We made it back. Maybe that means something. Or maybe it means we led something terrible straight to humanity's grave. Danny joined them. I've been thinking. The Wanderer wasn't the only deep space survey ship. There were dozens of them. Long-range missions to the edge of the galaxy and beyond. What if some of them are still out there? Time dilation, Karen said, walking up behind them. Any ship that went far enough and fast enough would experience the same thing we did. They could be coming home right now, just like us. Not knowing what happened, Morrison's jaw clenched. And every one of them is a signal flare. Every faster-than-light jump, every energy signature. They're lighting up the darkness, showing the enemy exactly where to find us. The council station was massive. It hung in space like a crystal city, home to hundreds of alien species. When their ship docked, Morrison and his crew were rushed through corridors filled with beings they had never seen before. Gas creatures in floating tanks. Living rocks. Energy beings that looked like colored light. The council chamber was enormous. Tiers of seats rose up in a circle, filled with representatives from across the galaxy. At the center was a raised platform. That's where Morrison stood now, feeling very small and very alone. High Counselor Vexnar spoke first. He was a Grondak, which meant he looked like a mountain that could walk. His voice rumbled like an earthquake. Captain Morrison, you claim that humanity fled an unknown enemy, yet our records show no such threat. No invasion, no attack. Explain this. Morrison looked around at all the alien faces watching him. You weren't looking in the right place, counselor. Karen, show them. Karen activated a holographic display. Data filled the air above them. 20,000 years ago, humanity's deep space probes detected something at the edge of the galaxy. We called them the Silence. Not because they were quiet, but because everything they touched became silent. The display showed star maps. Red markers indicated where the Silence had been detected. With each red marker, civilizations vanished from the records. Not defeated, not conquered, erased. They moved through space in huge fleets, Morrison continued. Wherever they went, all technology died. Every city was destroyed down to atoms. Every ship was torn apart. Every trace of civilization was removed. The council chamber was very quiet now. Humanity tried to fight, Lisa said. We sent our best warships and our best fighters. None of them came back. So our leaders made a choice. They ordered a complete shutdown. Every colony, every station, every city on Earth went dark. No more technology, no more signals, nothing that would attract attention. We hid, Greg added, made ourselves look primitive, hoped the Silence would pass us by. And it worked, Karen said. For 20,000 years, Earth looked like a planet that hadn't invented spaceflight yet. The Silence moved on. They went looking for other prey in the galactic core. Vexnar's rocky face somehow managed to look angry. If this is true, why did humanity not warn us? Why let other species build civilizations in ignorance? Because you wouldn't have believed us, Morrison said simply. You barely believe us now. And because we hoped maybe the Silence had moved on, that we'd hidden long enough, that maybe, just maybe, it was over. But it's not over, Zixthal said from the Vathari section. Your ship, Captain Morrison. Your faster-than-light drive, your energy signature. You lit up like a beacon. Morrison felt the weight of those words. We didn't know. We'd been away, experiencing time dilation. We thought we'd find home waiting for us. We didn't know humanity had hidden. The Sentinel came from the same region we did, Danny said. The Obscura cluster. I think there might be other human ships out there. Survey vessels like us, coming home after long missions. Each one not knowing what happened. And each one, Karen finished, is telling the Silence exactly where to find us. An alien that looked like living water spoke in a voice like rain. What do they want? Resources? Territory? We don't know, Morrison admitted. Maybe they're machines programmed to destroy technology. Maybe they're aliens who hate civilization itself. We never got close enough to find out. We just know they kill everything that flies in space. How long do we have? Vexnar asked. 14 days until the main fleet reaches Earth, Lisa said. Maybe less for advanced scouts. Part 3. The council chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded evacuation. Others called for war. A few insisted this was all a lie, that humans were making up stories. Morrison waited. He stood there on the platform, quiet and still, while the galaxy argued about whether to believe him. Finally he spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but something about it made everyone stop and listen. Counselors, humanity has been preparing for this moment for 20,000 years. The chamber went silent. What do you mean? Vexnar asked slowly. I mean, we didn't die. We didn't give up. We hid ourselves and we waited. Morrison's eyes were hard now, like steel. We built things, made weapons, developed technology that the Silence has never seen, because we created it after we already met them. Humanity went to sleep. And now it's time to wake up. Zixthal leaned forward. Captain, are you saying there are humans still alive on Earth? I'm saying we need to go there and find out. 6 hours later, the Wanderer dropped through Earth's atmosphere. Morrison sat in the captain's chair. His crew was around him. Lisa at navigation. Danny at engineering. Karen at science. Greg at medical. The 5 last humans awake in the galaxy, coming home. Danny, Morrison said. Tell me you remember the coordinates. The engineer grinned. It was the first smile any of them had managed in days. Boss, I've had those numbers memorized since I was a kid. Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado. That's where they said the deep storage was. Below them, Earth spread out in every shade of green and blue. The old cities were barely visible under new forests. Rivers ran through places that used to be highways. Nature had taken back the planet, but not all of it. The Wanderer touched down in a clearing near the mountain. The landing gear hit soil that hadn't felt human feet in 200 centuries. Morrison stood up slowly. All right, he said. Let's see if anyone's home. The door opened. Fresh air rushed in. Real Earth air, not the recycled stuff they'd been breathing for 42 years. Morrison stepped out first and knelt down. He touched the ground with his hand. Dirt, grass, home. Lisa, take a security team and find the entrance. Greg, scan for anything dangerous. Karen, see if you can wake up any old computers. Danny, you're with me. They found the entrance after an hour of searching. It was hidden under centuries of plant growth. Vines covered massive metal doors, but when Danny cleared them away, they could see words carved into the steel. Written in a dozen human languages. For those who return. Danny put his hand on the access panel. Nothing happened at first. Then deep underground, something woke up. Ancient machines stirred. Fusion reactors that had been waiting for 20,000 years began to hum. The doors opened. Emergency lights flickered on inside. The tunnel stretched away into darkness. Morrison pulled out a flashlight and stepped through. Stay close, he said. We don't know what's down here. They walked for 10 minutes. The tunnel branched in many directions. Signs on the walls pointed to different sections. Storage, command, medical, armory, and one that made Morrison stop breathing for a moment. Stasis. They followed that tunnel. It opened into a chamber so large that their lights couldn't reach the far wall. And filling that chamber, stretching away as far as they could see, were pods. Thousands of pods. Oh my God, Lisa whispered. Each pod was made of metal and glass. Each one had a small green light on top. Active. Still running after 20,000 years. Morrison walked to the nearest pod. He wiped frost from the glass and looked inside. A young woman lay there, peaceful as if sleeping. She wore a military uniform. Her name tag read Lieutenant Sophie Martinez. They're alive, Morrison said, his voice shaking. Karen, how many? Karen was already at a control station. Her fingers moved across keyboards that should have been rust and dust. But they worked. Everything worked. Captain, these pods are functional. There are humans inside. Soldiers, engineers, scientists. And according to these logs, there are more facilities like this all over Earth. All over the old colonies. How many total? Morrison asked again. Karen kept reading. Her eyes got wider and wider. Millions. Maybe tens of millions. Humanity didn't die, Jake. They just went to sleep. Greg Palmer was already studying the revival systems. Captain, I can wake them up. But it will take time. The system is designed to bring them out slowly. Prevent shock. Morrison looked around at all those sleeping people. All those lives frozen in time waiting. Do it, wake them all. Start with military personnel. We're going to need them. Over the next week, humanity began to wake. They came out of the pods confused and scared. The last thing they remembered was lying down for long sleep. Being told they would wake when humanity needed them. That could be years or decades or centuries. None of them expected 20,000 years. A soldier named Lieutenant Tony Rogers was one of the first to wake. He sat on a bench, head in his hands, while Greg explained what had happened. 20,000 years, Tony repeated. Everyone I knew is gone. My mom, my dad, my little sister. All of them dead for thousands of years. I know, Greg said quietly. I'm sorry. We all lost people. Why did you wake us up? Why not just let us sleep forever? Because they're coming back. The silence. The thing we hid from. And we need every human we can get. Tony looked up. His eyes were red, but they were also hard. Then let's make it count. More people woke. Engineers who started bringing old systems online. Scientists who began checking weapon designs. Families who held each other and cried for a world that was gone. By day 5, they had 200,000 people awake. By day 7, over 1 million. Commander Zixthal watched from his ship in orbit. Other aliens had come too. Representatives from the Council, scientists, military observers, all of them staring at Earth in amazement. It's incredible, Zixthal said to his science officer. They prepared for everything. Food that regenerates, water systems, knowledge stored in computers, weapons we've never imagined. Do you think it will be enough? 3 asked. I don't know, but I think we're about to find out. On day 8, a battered ship limped into orbit, the ESS Sentinel. It had burns all over its hull. Parts of it were completely destroyed. But it was still flying. Lieutenant Commander Amy Collins looked exhausted. She had short red hair and eyes that had seen things no one should see. She stood in Morrison's command center deep under Cheyenne Mountain and drank coffee that didn't taste quite right. They're coming, she said. My ship detected them 2 weeks ago. We tried to run, but they followed us. They're faster than anything we have. Did you see them fight? Asked General Paul Richards. He was one of the officers who had woken up. His gray hair and lined face somehow made him look trustworthy. Yes. They don't use normal weapons. They have these fields that just unmake things. Like reality itself comes apart. Our shields did nothing. Morrison studied a tactical display. How many ships? Thousands in the main fleet. But they send scouts ahead. Small groups. Maybe 50 ships. They'll be here first. How long? 4 days. Maybe less. Dr. Helen Carter, the head scientist, spoke up. We have weapons that might work. Technology based on theories we developed after meeting the Silence the first time. But we never got to test them. Colonel Ben Hughes commanded the military forces. We're bringing ships out of storage. 60 capital ships so far, 300 destroyers, over 1,000 fighters. It's not as many as we had before the hiding, but it's something. Morrison looked around the command center. It was filled with people now. Humans who had been asleep for 20,000 years, working alongside the 5 who had crossed time itself to get home. The Galactic Council is assembling a fleet, Lisa reported. 300 ships from 40 species. They want to meet the Silence before they reach Earth. No, Morrison said. Tell them to wait. They don't know what they're up against. But the Council didn't listen. On day 10, their fleet moved forward. 300 ships from dozens of worlds. They were brave. They were determined to protect Earth and the newly awakened humanity. And they were unprepared. The Silence came out of the darkness. Their ships were huge and black, like they absorbed light itself. They didn't send messages, didn't make demands. They just attacked. The Council fleet fought hard. They fired every weapon they had. Energy beams, missiles, mass drivers, plasma cannons. Nothing worked. The Silence ships projected those fields and matter just came apart. Atoms stopped being atoms. Ships broke down into dust and gas. In 15 minutes, 100 Council ships were gone. Morrison watched it happen on his screens. He saw brave aliens die trying to protect his world. He saw Zixthal's ship take damage, its crystal hull cracking. Pull back, Morrison shouted into the communication system. Zixthal, get your people out of there! But the Vathari commander held his position. He was buying time for other ships to escape. Captain Morrison. Zixthal's voice crackled through the speakers. Humanity stood alone against this once. You don't have to anymore. Tell your people they have friends now. The transmission cut off as his ship exploded in a bright flash. Part 4, the command center fell silent. On the main screen, the battle continued, but Morrison wasn't watching anymore. He was thinking about Zixthal, the alien commander who had welcomed 5 lost humans, who had shown them what happened to their world, who had believed them when they warned about the Silence. Now he was gone. Dust in space. Just like that, sir, Lisa said quietly. The Council fleet is retreating. They've lost a third of their ships. Morrison closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were hard as stone. General Richards, deploy our fleet. Dr. Carter, activate the resonance weapons. Colonel Hughes, launch all fighters. He turned to his original crew, Danny, Karen, Greg, and Lisa. The 5 people who had traveled through time itself to get home. We've been quiet for 20,000 years. Time to make some noise. Deep under mountains and oceans, hidden doors began to open, doors that had been sealed for 200 centuries. Behind them were ships, human ships, built with technology the Silence had never seen. They rose from Earth like a swarm of angry bees, sleek destroyers with hulls that bent light, massive carriers holding hundreds of fighters, capital ships bristling with weapons that looked nothing like conventional arms. The crew of the Wanderer had been 5 people for 42 years. Now Morrison commanded millions, soldiers and pilots and engineers, all of them woken from their long sleep to fight the enemy their ancestors had fled from. Amy Collins stood at a tactical station. The Sentinel was too damaged to fly, but she could still help. The scouts are breaking off from the Council fleet. They're heading straight for Earth now. How many? 53 ships. Colonel Hughes pulled up weapon ranges. We can meet them at lunar orbit. That gives us room to maneuver. Morrison nodded. Launch the lunar defense platforms. Deploy the moon base fighters. Let's show them what 20,000 years of preparation looks like. The Silent scouts came fast. Their black ships cut through space like knives through water. They had destroyed Council ships easily. They expected the same here. They were wrong. The first human ships to engage were destroyers, small and quick. They darted around the silence vessels like sharks. When the enemy projected their reality-breaking fields, the human ships simply weren't there anymore. They moved in ways that didn't make sense, their engines bending space itself. Resonance weapons firing, Dr. Carter reported. The human ships didn't use normal guns. Instead, they projected waves of energy that matched the frequency of the silence fields. Where the two met, they canceled each other out. The enemy's weapons stopped working, and then the human ships fired missiles. But these weren't explosive missiles. They were smart. With AI brains that could think faster than any organic being, they dodged and weaved through enemy defenses. And when they hit, they didn't explode. They drilled into the silence. Ships and released something else, nanobots, billions of microscopic machines that took the enemy vessels apart from the inside. The first silence scout ship came apart in 30 seconds. Its hull peeled away in layers. Its engines died. Its core broke into pieces. The wreckage tumbled through space, already being consumed by the tiny machines. Target destroyed, Hughes reported. No survivors. Good, Morrison said coldly. 52 more to go. The battle at lunar orbit lasted 6 hours. It was brutal and fast. The silent scouts were powerful, but they had never fought an enemy that had spent 20,000 years preparing specifically to kill them. Human fighters swarmed them. Each fighter was piloted by someone who had trained their whole life for this moment, then gone to sleep waiting for it. They fought with precision and fury. They lost people, good people, but they kept fighting. By the time the sun rose over Earth, all 53 silent scouts were destroyed. In the command center, people cheered. They hugged each other. Some cried with relief. Morrison didn't celebrate. He stared at the strategic display showing the main silence fleet. Thousands of ships still coming, still 3 days away. Don't get comfortable, he said. That was just the scouts. The real fleet is still out there. General Richards moved to his side. The old soldier looked tired. We lost 60 fighters and 2 destroyers. 3,000 people. I know. The Galactic Council is asking to join our defensive formation. They want to help. Morrison thought about Zixthal, about the Vathari commander who had died buying time for others. Tell them yes. But they follow our tactical commands. No more heroes charging in alone. Over the next 2 days, more humans woke from stasis. The numbers grew from 1 million to 3 million to 5 million. Earth's orbit filled with ships as more vessels rose from hidden bays. Dr. Carter worked without sleep, making sure every weapon system was ready. Danny Cruz helped repair damaged fighters. Karen White analyzed the wreckage from the scout ships, looking for weaknesses. Greg Palmer treated wounded pilots and tried to keep morale up. Lisa Hayes coordinated with the Council fleet. The surviving alien ships had regrouped. They were scared but determined. More ships arrived from across the galaxy, species that had heard what happened and came to help. On the morning of the 3rd day, alarms sounded across every human facility. They're here, Amy Collins said. The main silence fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. The sensors couldn't count them all, thousands, maybe tens of thousands. All those massive black ships moving in perfect formation. Morrison stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays. Every screen showed enemy ships. There were so many. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Battle positions. Remember your training. Remember why we're here, he paused. 20,000 years ago, humanity ran. Today we stand. For Earth, for the friends we've lost, for everyone who's sleeping below us who deserves to wake to a free world. Make them count every inch of space. The human fleet moved to meet them. 67 capital ships, 300 destroyers, over 2,000 fighters, and behind them the Council fleet. 200 alien ships from 40 worlds determined to stand with humanity. The Silence fleet didn't slow down. They came straight at Earth like an avalanche. This is it, General Richards said. The fleets met between Mars and Earth. Space lit up with weapons fire. Human resonance beams cut through the darkness. Missiles swarmed by the thousands. The Silence responded with their reality-breaking fields, trying to unmake the human ships. But the human shields were different now. They didn't try to resist the Silence weapons. Instead, they bent around them. Let the fields pass through empty space while the ships maneuvered away. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded on both sides. Human destroyers worked in packs, surrounding single Silence vessels and tearing them apart. Fighters dove and weaved through the enemy formation. targeting weak points that Dr. Carter had identified. The Council ships fought hard, too. They had learned from their first encounter. They stayed back and provided long-range support, firing from positions where the silence fields couldn't reach them easily. Morrison watched it all, making decisions faster than he could think. Redirect these fighters. Pull back that destroyer. Send reinforcements there. Every choice meant life or death for hundreds of people. Sir, we're losing ships, Hughes reported. The enemy has broken through our left flank. Send the reserve destroyers. And bring the new weapon online. Dr. Carter looked up sharply. Captain, we haven't tested it. We don't know if it will work. We're out of time. Fire it. Deep in the moon, a weapon that humanity had spent centuries designing powered up. It was based on a simple idea. If the silence ships projected fields that unmade matter, what if you projected a field that unmade their fields? The weapon fired. It was invisible, but its effects weren't. Across the battlefield, in a sphere 10,000 kilometers wide, the silence fields simply stopped working. Their weapons died. Their shields failed. They were suddenly just ships made of metal and circuits, and human weapons worked very well against metal and circuits. All ships, concentrate fire on the affected area, Morrison ordered. Hit them now while they're vulnerable. The human and Council fleets poured everything they had into that sphere of disabled ships. Missiles, beams, mass drivers, railguns, everything. 50 silence ships died in the first minute, 100 in the second. By the fifth minute, 300 enemy vessels were nothing but debris. But the weapon couldn't stay active forever. It drew too much power. After 10 minutes, it shut down. The silence fleet pulled back, regrouping. They had lost hundreds of ships, but they still had thousands more. And now they knew about humanity's new weapon. They started spreading out, making sure they couldn't all be caught in one field again. Morrison studied the tactical display. His fleet had hurt them, but it wasn't enough. How many ships have we lost? He asked quietly. 21 capital ships, 140 destroyers, 800 fighters. Hughes's voice was grim. 40,000 dead, and the enemy? Best estimate? 400 ships destroyed, maybe 500. That's barely 10% of their fleet. No one said anything. Everyone in the command center knew what that meant. They were winning individual battles but losing the war. There were just too many silent ships. Part 5. Morrison stood in the command center, staring at numbers that told him humanity was going to lose. 40,000 people dead, more dying every minute, and the silence fleet still had thousands of ships left. Karen White had been working at her station for hours without rest. Now she suddenly stood up, her eyes wide. Captain, I found something in the scout wreckage. Something strange. What is it? The silence ships. They're all connected, like a network. They share information instantly across the whole fleet, so they coordinate well. We already knew that. No, sir. You don't understand. It's not just coordination. They're all running on the same signal. The same command structure. If we could disrupt that signal, the whole fleet would go dead. Morrison felt hope flare in his chest. Can we do it? Maybe, but we'd need to get close to their command ship. Really close. And I think I know which one it is. She pulled up a scan. This one is sending out signals while all the others just receive. It's bigger than the rest, too. Hidden in the center of their formation. Danny Cruz joined them, wiping grease off his hands. Getting close to the center of that fleet? That's suicide. Not if we use the Wanderer, Morrison said quietly. Everyone stopped and looked at him. Jake, no, Lisa said. The Wanderer is barely holding together. She can't fight her way through that fleet. She doesn't have to fight. She just has to get there. Morrison turned to Danny. How fast can she go? Full speed, no safety limits, burning everything we have? Danny understood what Morrison was asking. Fast enough. But Captain, you won't be able to stop. You'll crash right into that ship. I know. Jake, Lisa grabbed his arm. There has to be another way. There isn't. You know there isn't. Morrison looked at his crew. His friends. The 4 people who had been with him for 42 years. The Wanderer brought us home. Let's let her do one more thing. Greg Palmer shook his head. If you're going, we're going with you. No, I need you here. Danny, keep those weapons running. Karen, coordinate the fleet. Greg, take care of the wounded. Lisa, you're in command when I'm gone. Make sure they remember what we did here. Jake, please. That's an order, First Officer. Lisa's eyes were wet. You stubborn fool. You always were the worst at following orders. Morrison smiled sadly. Learned from the best. He turned to General Richards. When the Wanderer makes its run, I need the whole fleet to cover us. Everything you have. Make them focus on you, not on one old ship. Understood, Captain. It's been an honor. The honor was mine. 30 minutes later, Morrison walked through the Wanderer alone. The ship was quiet, empty. For 42 years, these corridors had been home. Now they would be his tomb. He sat in the captain's chair one last time. His hands moved across the familiar controls. The engines came to life with a sound he knew better than his own heartbeat. This is Captain Jake Morrison in the Wanderer. I'm making a run at their command ship. All fleet units, give me cover. Negative, Wanderer, Richards replied. We can send a drone. A drone won't make it. They'll shoot it down. But one old ship that looks like it's trying to escape? They might let it through. Morrison gripped the controls. Besides, this old girl deserves a good death. We both do. He pushed the engines to full power. The Wanderer shot forward, accelerating hard. Toward the Silence Fleet. Toward the center where their command ship waited. The human fleet erupted in weapons fire. Every ship, every gun, everything they had. They created a storm of fire that the Silence had to respond to. Had to focus on. In the chaos, one small battered ship slipped through. The Wanderer flew like she was young again. Morrison pushed her harder than he'd ever dared. Engine warnings screamed. Hull integrity alerts flashed. He ignored them all. Silence ships turned to intercept him. Their reality-breaking fields reached out. Morrison dodged and weaved. His hands flew across the controls with the skill of someone who'd been flying this ship for decades. A field clipped his port side. The hull started to come apart. Morrison compensated using maneuvering thrusters to spin away. Come on, girl. Just a little further. The command ship loomed ahead, massive and dark. It was bigger than anything Morrison had ever seen. Bigger than a city, but he could see the transmission arrays, the communication systems that Karen had identified. That's where he needed to hit. His weapons were useless. The Wanderer had never been a warship, but she was fast and she was heavy. And at this speed, anything could be a weapon. Morrison armed the self-destruct, overrode every safety system, set the fusion reactor to overload on impact. The Wanderer was going to die, but she was taking that command ship with her. He thought about his wife, his children, his grandchildren who had lived and died while he was gone. He thought about Lisa and Danny and Karen and Greg, his crew, his friends. See you on the other side, he said quietly. The Wanderer hit the command ship at nearly half the speed of light. The fusion reactor exploded. The detonation tore through the Silence vessel's hull, found its reactor. That exploded too. And then, in a chain reaction that ripped across the massive ship, system after system failed. The transmission arrays went dark. Across the battlefield, thousands of Silence ships suddenly stopped moving. They just hung in space, dead and powerless. Without their command ship, without the network telling them what to do, they were nothing but metal. All ships, Lisa's voice came across every channel. Her voice was breaking, but it was strong too. Fire, fire everything. For Jake, for everyone we've lost. And this. The human and council fleets didn't hold back. They poured fire into the disabled Silence vessels. Ship after ship broke apart, exploded, died. It took 3 hours. 3 hours to destroy every single Silence ship in the solar system. Every threat. Every nightmare that humanity had run from. When it was over, space was filled with debris. Metal and dust that had once been the most terrifying fleet in the galaxy. In the command center deep under Cheyenne Mountain, people cried and cheered and held each other. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had survived. Lisa Hayes stood at the command station, tears running down her face. She had lost her captain, her friend. But she had a job to do. All ships, damage reports. Begin rescue operations for any survivors in damaged vessels. Dr. Carter, I want you to analyze every piece of Silence wreckage. I want to know everything about them. Who they were. Why they did this. General Richards, maintain defensive positions. We don't know if more are coming. Danny Cruz was already working on repairs. Karen White was coordinating with the council fleet. Greg Palmer was treating the wounded. They worked through the pain, through the loss, because that's what Jake would have wanted. 3 days later, Lisa stood on a hill overlooking what used to be Denver. The ruins of the old city were visible through the trees. Next to her stood General Richards, Dr. Carter, Colonel Hughes, and Amy Collins. "We found 30 more stasis facilities," Richards reported. "Another 20 million people ready to wake up. The Council is offering aid to help us rebuild. Species from across the galaxy are volunteering to help," Amy added. "They're calling us the heroes who stopped the silence." "Jake was the hero," Lisa said quietly. "Him and Zixthal and all the others who died." "No," a voice said behind them. They turned to see an alien approaching. He was Vathari, crystalline like Zixthal had been. "You are all heroes. My name is Commander Talvex. I was Zixthal's second in command. He spoke to me of you before he died. Said humanity was something special." "We're just stubborn," Lisa said. "We don't know how to quit." "Then you will help us rebuild?" Talvex asked. "The galaxy needs that stubbornness. The silence destroyed much before humanity stopped them. There are worlds that need help, species that need protection. Will you stand with us?" Lisa looked at Danny, Karen, and Greg. They nodded. "Yeah," she said. "We'll stand with you." That's what Jake would have wanted. That's what we all want. Over the next months, humanity woke up. Millions of people emerging from their long sleep to find a galaxy that needed them. They were farmers and engineers, teachers and soldiers, parents and children. They had gone to sleep to hide from the silence. Now they woke to help rebuild what the silence had destroyed. The Wanderer was gone, but her crew remained. Lisa took command of the New Earth Defense Forces. Danny became head of engineering for the new shipyards. Karen led the science team studying silence technology. Greg ran the medical corps that trained doctors for dozens of species. Earth filled with life again. Cities rose from the ruins. Ships launched from new spaceports. Human children played in parks where forests had grown for 20,000 years. And in space stations and on distant worlds, humans worked alongside aliens. Species that had once been strangers became friends. The galaxy was healing. A year after the battle, they held a ceremony. A monument was built in orbit around Earth. It was made from pieces of the Wanderer recovered from the debris field. Inscribed on it were the names of everyone who had died fighting the silence. Human and alien alike. Lisa Hayes stood before it during the dedication. Thousands watched. Humans and Vathari and Grondak and dozens of other species. "Captain Jake Morrison was a man out of time," she said. "He left Earth expecting to be gone 42 years. He came back 20,000 years later. Everything he knew was gone. Everyone he loved was dead. He could have given up. Instead, he saved us all." She looked at the monument. Part 1. The galaxy had forgotten about humans. 20,000 years is a long time, even for stars. The young alien races who now flew between the planets had only heard stories about humanity. Old stories. Dead stories. Commander Zixthal was not human. He was Vathari, which meant his body looked like it was made of living crystal. He had 6 eyes and mandibles that clicked when he talked. Right now, he stood on a space station above Earth, staring down at the blue planet below. Earth was empty. Well, not completely empty. There were trees and animals and oceans, but no people. No cities with lights. No radio signals. No ships launching into space. Just silence. Zixthal had been studying Earth for 3 years. The Galactic Council wanted to know what happened to humanity. One day they were there, building colonies and exploring space. The next day, nothing. Every human world went quiet at the same time. No goodbyes, no distress calls, just gone. The ruins were still there, crumbling buildings covered in vines. Roads broken by tree roots. Airports where no planes would ever land again. It made Zixthal sad, though he would never admit it. His people had taken over human space, built their own cities on human worlds. It felt wrong somehow, like moving into a house where everyone had mysteriously vanished. His science officer rushed into the observation room. Her name was unpronounceable to humans, so Zixthal just called her 3. 3 was shaking, which was bad because Vathari only shook when they were terrified. "Commander, we have a problem," 3 said, her voice high and tight. "What kind of problem?" "A ship just appeared. It came out of jump space near Earth. It's heading right for us." Zixthal felt his blood run cold. Ships didn't just appear in this sector. This was protected space, empty space, dead space. Identify it. Three's mandibles clicked nervously. That's the problem, sir. It's a human ship. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. That's impossible, Zixthal said. But even as he said it, he was running toward the command center. The main screen showed the ship. It was old, so old that Zixthal could see the damage on its hull from here. Scars from thousands of years of travel. Parts that had been repaired with the wrong materials. But it was flying. Moving. Alive. Sir, they're broadcasting. The communications officer said. It's in the old human language. Play it. Static filled the room. Then a voice. A human voice. Speaking words that no one had heard in 20,000 years. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Space Service Wanderer. We are returning from our deep space mission. Requesting permission to approach Earth. Does anyone copy? The command center fell silent. 30 Vathari officers stared at each other with wide eyes. Zixthal made a decision. Open a channel. Channel open, sir. Zixthal cleared his throat. Captain Morrison, this is Commander Zixthal of the Vathari Research Collective. I'm afraid I have some difficult news to share with you. Earth is currently under our protection. Humanity has been gone for a very long time. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Commander. Morrison's voice came back. And now it was different. Tight. Scared. Please repeat that. Did you say humanity is gone? Captain, how long have you been away from Earth? 42 years by our ship's clock. We were surveying the Obscura cluster. We hit some gravity problems that slowed us down, but we should only be a few years late. A pause. Commander, what year is it? Zixthal told him. He gave the date in both Galactic Standard and the old human calendar. The sound that came through the speakers was half laugh, half sob. No, that can't be right. We've been gone for 20,000 years. I'm afraid so, Captain. I think you should dock with our station. We need to talk face to face. 2 hours later, Zixthal waited in the docking bay. He had 30 armed guards with him. He didn't know what to expect. A human ship appearing out of nowhere after 20,000 years? This was either a miracle or a trap. The airlock door opened with a hiss. The first human Zixthal had ever seen stepped through. Captain Jake Morrison was tall, taller than Zixthal had expected from the old records. He had dark hair going gray at the sides. His eyes were blue and looked very, very tired. He wore a uniform that was clean but old, patched in places. Behind him came 4 more humans. 2 men, 2 women. All of them looked shocked. Morrison stared at Zixthal and the other Vathari. He stared at the advanced technology of the docking bay. He stared at everything like a man who had just woken from a bad dream into a worse one. 20,000 years, Morrison said quietly. My wife, my children, everyone I knew. They're all dead. They've been dead for thousands of years. One of the women stepped forward. She was blonde and looked stronger than Morrison right now, more in control. I'm First Officer Lisa Hayes, she said. Commander Zixthal, we need information. What happened to humanity? Where did everyone go? Zixthal gestured down the corridor. Please follow me. I'll show you everything we know. But I must warn you, we have more questions than answers. They walked through the station. The humans stared at everything. At the Vathari, at the technology. At the windows showing Earth below. Zixthal could see Morrison's hands shaking. He brought them to the archive room. It was a large chamber filled with holographic displays. He pulled up Earth's timeline and let it play. The humans watched in silence as the history unfolded before them. Human colonies thriving, expanding, growing. Then, one by one, going dark. Not destroyed, not conquered. Just quiet. The timeline showed ships that stopped flying. Stations that stopped broadcasting. Cities that stopped sending signals. We've studied this for years, Zixthal explained. We've explored dozens of human worlds. We've found ruins, but no bodies. No signs of war or disease. Humanity just stopped being a spacefaring civilization, Danny Cruz, the engineer, slammed his fist on a table. Humans don't just quit, that's not who we are. Karen White, the science officer, was already working with the displays. Her fingers moved fast across the controls. Commander, look at this pattern. The colonies didn't fail randomly. They went quiet from the outside in, like they were retreating, pulling back toward Earth. Morrison moved closer. His tired eyes suddenly looked very sharp. Retreating from what? Zixthal's antennae drooped. That, Captain, is what we've been trying to figure out. Another officer burst into the room. Commander, we're picking up another signal. It's coming from deep space, from the same direction the Wanderer came from. What kind of signal? Human. Military encryption, and Commander, it's talking about something following them home.